If you look at our new Fox News poll at 100 days job approval compared to other presidents, there you see the president at 44%, and you see his first term at 45% at this mark, the 100-day mark.
So Donald Trump's approval rating has plummeted 100 days into office. I guess this political strategy is called making America hate you again.
This is just too good. Fox News just acknowledged live on air that Donald Trump's approval rating is collapsing and that it's worse than at the same point in his first term. Just take a look.
President talking tariffs and the economy. If you look at our new Fox News poll at 100 days job approval compared to other presidents, there you see the president at 44%, and you see his first term at 45% at this mark, the 100-day mark. We have other new polls that are revealing some concerns about the economy. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, Trump has a lower approval rating at the same point in their administrations than Obama, Biden, Bush, and himself. He's lower than himself. Other polling showing that the American people have completely lost confidence in Donald Trump's ability to handle major issues like the economy, for example. Fox News, one of the most reliably conservative outlets out there, is acknowledging on air that Trump's approval rating is collapsing and that people have concerns surrounding his presidency. That's how you know it's bad.
On Friday, April 25th, the New York Times published its latest poll showing President Donald Trump's approval rating at 42%. On Sunday, April 27th, CNN published their latest poll showing the president's approval rating at 41%. This is the lowest any president's had in over 70 years.
Oh, the timing on this one. No, Trump is literally the only president in the recent history to have the lowest approval rating in the first 100 days. Look it up. The poll just came out. Have a good one.
Hey. Fox News has reported from their polling that the current person sitting in the Oval Office approval rating is far worse than this person's last term. They're saying that it's at 44% currently. Now, the last term was at 45%. What are your thoughts on this? Because I know what I think about this. I think that those polls are absolutely correct. This is not some, as they say, left-leaning news station. This is a right-leaning news station that states that his approval rating is worse than his first term.
100 days in office for any president is a major milestone, a moment that sets the tone for the years to come. And for Donald Trump, the 45th president of the United States, those first 100 days were anything but ordinary. From sweeping executive order to fierce political battles, from promises made to promises tested, Trump's early days in the office sparked a wave of change and controversy across the nation and the world. But what really happened behind the headlines? Which promises were kept? Which ones stalled? And what did it all mean for America's future? Today, we dive deep into Donald Trump's first 100 days in office, the actions, the impact, and the legacies that still shape America's politics. Stick around because you won't want to miss what we uncover, and don't forget to support this channel by subscribing.
Just shy of about 100 days back in office, Donald Trump, he isn't exactly convincing Americans he's up for the job. There's a brand new AP poll, and it finds just 18% of Americans think that he's been a great president so far. 13% say he's good. The same amount rank his performance as poor, and nearly 4 out of 10 say he's a terrible president. His tanking approval ratings come as voters absorb the high cost of his tariffs and witness massive cuts to the federal workforce, not to mention his attacks on the rule of law. According to a Fox poll, just 44% of voters approve of the job that he's doing, and that's the worst approval rating in that poll at this point in a presidency this century. And it's well below the numbers of President Biden's, Obama, and George W. Bush during their first 100 days. It is even 1 point worse than his approval at the 100-day mark of his first term. Now, you know, we like to say about polls, they're just a snapshot in time, but this, and you know, they're indicative of how voters are feeling right now. They're not a crystal ball, but oh goodness, the voters are not feeling confident.
In breaking news, Trump's approval rating at the 100-day mark of his presidency is the lowest for any president within 7 decades. That's 70 freaking years. Way to go, Trump. His 41% approval rating is down 4 points. And that's just since March. And it's down a full 7 points since February. And it's showing zero signs of recovery. And only around 22% say that they strongly are agreeing with him. And here's the real kicker. The groups that he had somehow swayed over to his side, Hispanics, women, they are dropping way faster than that 4 and 7 points I'd mentioned prior. So good for you on another record, Donald Trump.
One of the most defining and divisive moves in Trump's first 100 days was his aggressive stance on trade. President Trump launched a sweeping campaign to rebalance America's trade relationship, starting with China. Billions of dollars in tariffs were slapped in Chinese goods, from steel to electronics, aiming to protect American industries and bringing manufacturing jobs back to home. But the fallout was bigger than anyone expected. American farmers were amongst the hardest hit. China, once the largest buyer of U.S. soybeans, corn, and pork, retaliated by slapping their own tariffs on American farm goods. Of course, the result is not impressive. Plunging crop prices, rotten harvest, and record-high farm bankruptcies. Farmers across the Midwest, many of whom had supported Trump, suddenly found themselves caught in the middle of a global trade war that they didn't start and couldn't even escape. The labor market also felt the sting. While the tariffs aim to protect blue-collar jobs, industry dependent on global supply chain, from automakers to tech manufacturers, faced rising costs. Some were forced to lay off workers, moved production abroad, or shut down entirely. Small businesses weren't spared either. Higher import costs meant tighter profit margin. Thousands of small retailers, manufacturers, and exports struggled to adapt, often passing the cost onto consumers or closing their door for goods. And investors, Wall Street saw increased volatility. Markets dipped sharply during tariff announcement period. Billions in value were lost as uncertainty over trade policy spooked investors, slowed growth, and rattled confidence in the U.S. economy. Internationally, the effect rippled far beyond U.S. borders. Countries that rallied on U.S. farm imports turned to new suppliers. Australia, Brazil, Argentina permanently reshaped the global trade network. Even after new trade deals were negotiated, much of the lost market share for American farmers never fully returned. In the end, Donald Trump's tariff war reshaped America's economy, bringing short-term protection for some industries but deep long-term costs for others.
So Donald Trump was just hit with even more bad news. A new CBS YouGov poll has absolutely devastating numbers for Donald Trump as it relates to how people feel he's doing on the economy. Let me break this down for you quickly. First, on who is more responsible for the current abysmal state of the U.S. economy, 54% of respondents said Trump's policies. Just 21% said Biden's policies, 20% said both equally, and 5% said neither. But it gets even more interesting than that. When you break this poll down, even more Republicans blame Donald Trump's policies over Joe Biden's policies. This was actually quite surprising to me. 40% of Republicans blame Trump's policies, 39% blame Biden's policies, 17% of Republicans blame both equally, and then among people who just consider themselves conservatives, 42% of them blame Trump's policies, 39% of them blame Biden's policies, and 15% of them blame both equally. Among white, non-college voters, this is Donald Trump's base essentially, 51% blame Trump's policies, 27% blame Biden's, and 17% both equally. And look at this trend right here on Trump's handling of the economy. Just 44% approve, 56% disapprove. That has flipped from back in March 2nd. So not even all that long ago when 51% said they approved and 49% said they disapproved. And there's more. Trump is now underwater on his handling of inflation. Right now, approval is at 40%, disapproval at 60%. Back in March, not that long ago, his approval was 46% to a disapproval rating of 54% on inflation. It's now more clear than ever that Donald Trump's quote-unquote Liberation Day has been a complete and utter disaster. His approval rating right now is tanking at about the same rate that President Biden's approval rating started going down after the Afghanistan withdrawal.
Breaking news, Donald Trump just made history once again. In just 100 days of his second terms, only 39% of Americans say, yes, this is fine, while a whopping 55% say, please make this stop. It's official. The lowest 100-day approval rating for any U.S. presidents in 80 years. What happened, you ask? Tariffs wrecking the markets, crackdown on immigrations, appointing Elon Musk to fix the government as if it is a Tesla recall. All this will add up. And meanwhile, Donald Trump is firing federal workers left and right as if he is running another failed episode of The Apprentice. Republicans still love him though. 75% are still hanging on tight, like passengers on a roller coasters without seatbelts. Trump's second term, lower approval rating, higher drama, and somehow an even crazier plot twist.
Looking back at Trump's first 100 days in office, it's clear that both actions came with real consequences. The tariffs were meant to protect, but they also exposed how interconnected and vulnerable America's economy is. Farmers, workers, small business owners, and investors all paid a price that in many cases they are all still paying today. Personally, I believe leadership is about weighing risk against reward, not just for the next election cycle, but for the next generation. Decisions made in the heat of a moment can shape lives for decades, and whether you agreed with Trump's method or not, one thing is undeniable. They forced America to confront hard truths about its place in the global economy. Americans have the responsibility to stay informed, to think critically, and to hold their leaders accountable, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. If they want a stronger and resilient future, then they need to keep asking tough questions, pushing for real solutions, and remembering that the strength of this nation lies in its people, not just in the politics. Thanks for watching, guys. If you found this video insightful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button so you don't miss out on any deep dive. And tell me in the comments, how do you think Americans' first 100 days under Donald Trump changed the economy?